Hello, everybody. This video is going to cover some information about your informative speeches that are coming up. So give me just a second and I'm going to launch a PowerPoint. Okay. So speaking to inform, the main idea behind a speech of this type is that you're trying to convey or share knowledge and understanding with your audience. There are technically 4 different types of these speeches. Speeches about objects, processes, which you guys have actually already done because that's a demonstration or instructional speech. And then there's also speeches on events and concepts. So let's break those down. So a speech, an informative speech about an object would be you choosing to present on anything that's visible, tangible, and anything that's like stable in form. So more of, that inanimate object type of approach. So here is an example of a purpose statement and essential idea if you were doing this type of speech. So purpose: to inform my audience about the geographical regions of the Mississippi River. And then for essential idea, the suggestion could be the Mississippi River is divided into 3 sections, each with its own unique features. So the central idea is setting this up to very naturally put your speech together in terms of 3 sections. Right here, obviously, we're talking about that. And then describe the unique features of each of those 3 sections. So when you would put your main points together about the object speech, you would potentially have your first main point be the Upper Mississippi is known for its scenic parks and system of dams and locks. And then as a second main point, the Middle Mississippi, so we're talking about the sections, is known for its wildlife refuges and fishing opportunities. And then as a third main point, the Lower Mississippi is known for its heavy river traffic and connection to the Gulf of Mexico. And obviously, when you put your speech together, you could start with these, but then you're going to have to build in your sub-points, sub-points, transitions, etc. The process speech, which you guys have already done, is the systematic series of actions that lead to a specific result. But you guys are already very aware of what it takes to put together a process speech, so we're not going to belabor that at this point. We're going to just move on and go to the event speech, which is another option that you can go with. The event speech is talking about anything that is happening or has happened, etc. So something that has occurred or is occurring on a more, consistent or regular basis, etc. So you guys are actually going to be doing one of your minor speeches on a current event, so it will help you prepare for this type of speech for sure. An example for a specific purpose with this could be to inform my audience about 3 aspects of Japan's Obon Festival, and then putting a central idea together that goes along those lines is potentially going to look like this. Japan's Obon Festival, is famous for its lanterns, historic dances, and graveside gatherings. So again, like the last example we looked at, your central idea is intentionally lining up how you're going to use your central idea for your main points, excuse me. So then when you're actually putting those main points together, the first could potentially be paper lanterns are hung outside homes to guide the spirits of departed family members. The second one could be historic dances are performed in public areas with special music and choreography. And then the third main point could be graveside gatherings are held by families to maintain the burial sites of their ancestors. So then again, you would start to detail out all of these ideas with more specific information in order to give your audience an idea of what this all really is, or what it means, or what it looks like. Because obviously, some of this stuff is not going to be familiar to people. And so you want to make sure and capture all of the information that you feel like someone would not necessarily have about the particular topic you've chosen. Excuse me. The last option is going for a concept speech. And this will be whether something where you engage in a discussion about a belief, a theory, an idea, a notion, a principle, something along those lines. These are a little bit trickier to pull off because they are a little bit more subjective. Because, you know, if you're talking about a belief in something, obviously that's what you believe. So finding finding information through your research might be a little trickier, and then also a little harder to pull off in terms of finding something that your audience will agree with. But it's totally feasible, so not an issue. All right, so if we are going for this type of speech, maybe you could say that your specific purpose would be to inform my audience about the basic principles of nonviolent resistance. So a concept and an idea here that they're working on. So a central idea that could stem from that is the basic principles of nonviolent resistance stress using moral means to achieve social change, refusing to inflict violence on one's enemies, and using suffering as a social force. And so again, like the other two, we can see we've already plugged our main points into that central idea. And so then we see these main points connecting back to that central idea with the first one. The first major principle of nonviolent resistance is that social change must be achieved by moral means. The second one, I'm sounding repetitive because that's what I have in here, but anyways, the second major principle of nonviolent resistance is that one should not inflict violence on one's enemies. And then the third major principle of nonviolent resistance is that suffering can be a powerful social force. So again, and the next step would be breaking that down into subpoints and offering details, etc. So here's a few guidelines or suggestions when you're putting your informative speeches together. Don't overestimate what your audience might know. It might seem obvious to you, and so you don't necessarily include some of that information, but it doesn't mean that everyone that is listening to your speech will automatically know what you're talking about. So sometimes you might put a little bit more detail in than seems necessary in your estimation, but you want to make sure that people really understand what you're talking about. You don't want to be vague, and you want to give very specific details and examples to help them understand what it is you're explaining to them. You want to try to relate the subject to the audience. So try to find a way of connecting with the people that are listening in terms of highlighting why they should be interested in finding out more information on the topic. And then you also don't want to be too technical. So there's always the chance that if you are talking about something that you know a lot of information about, I'm sorry, my cat is shaking, so you probably hear the bell in the background. I apologize. Um, you might know what these terms mean and you're very aware of them, but it doesn't mean the audience does. So you want to tone down the type of language that you use to make sure that it's accessible to everyone. If you do really need to include some of those more technical terms, then you want to make sure to also explain them in a way that everyone can understand. You want to avoid abstractions, so don't do vague generalities. You want to definitely provide a very specific level of detail and dig in so that you're not just skimming the surface and confusing people. Personalize the ideas that you use too. So, informative speeches have the potential to be a little bit boring if you're not careful. So, personalizing the idea, making it your own, putting your own spin on it and interjecting your personality in these speeches will help maintain your audience's attention and avoid them being bored by what you're talking about. And then along the same lines, be creative with how you present the topic. Again, just to hold the audience's attention and show your interest in the topic and why they should be interested. So there's going to be, I'm going to exit this here. There's going to be a few slides in the PowerPoint on Canvas that I am asking that you watch. There's just a couple of minutes long, and they're just giving some examples of how you would use some of these concepts that I just talked about in an actual speech. So after this, please go to the PowerPoint on Canvas and pull those up and watch them. And I hope everybody's doing well, and I will see you later. Have a great day, you guys. Bye-bye.